Welcome to Business Wellness in Hamilton, where we discuss strategies to enhance your business. Today, we have John Stewart with us, and he has a great deal of experience in building reputations and brand in business. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Linda. Great to be here.
Yes, great. You know, you play such a vital role in our community. I would really love it if you would step us through your various roles. I think you have at least 4 that I know of, and tell us a little bit what you do in each one.
Yeah, so I have the privilege of being involved with a bunch of different organizations in the city. One that keeps me really busy right now is I work as the managing director of Wentworth Strategy Group. So we are a management consultancy, and we're focused on helping small and medium enterprises. That was actually a spin-off of the original business that I founded. So 12 years ago, we founded a print company, which evolved into a marketing agency called Flyprint. So that's been a great experience. So both of those businesses kind of work together and symbiotic.
Yeah.
Also have the privilege of teaching at McMaster. So I teach strategy in the McMaster Syracuse Master of Communications Management program. And that's a really interesting intersection because I get to tie academia and business and being a real world practitioner all together. And the last thing that kind of fills up my schedule is I do a lot of work with an organization called Empowerment Squared, which is a charity that's based here in Hamilton and does a lot of work for newcomer youth and families, and also does some important work in Africa as well.
Wow, so you're very busy. Very busy.
That's fair to say, yeah.
So you have had great success and continued success for sure, but how important was reputation to your plan in regards to relationships?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to this conversation today because I think reputation and relationships are 2 absolutely critical aspects of any business, of any organization, for profit or nonprofit, or even just being successful as individuals as we go about living our everyday lives. So maybe just to open up, I'll explain my perspective on them. So the first one, reputation. Sometimes we hear that referred to in different ways, like brand or your personal brand or what you think of a business. I use the word reputation because I think it kind of humanizes the concept. It's something that we can all relate to. We all inherently understand that we have a reputation. People think things of us, and we think things of other people, and we think things about organizations and businesses. And that forms our decisions a lot of times around whether or not we want to interact with them and how. So I think it's absolutely critical to consider your reputation, consider how you're stewarding it, growing it, developing it towards your personal and professional success. On the other hand, relationships, and these 2 concepts obviously relate very closely, are critical. Sometimes in business, you'll more often hear the term used of networking or building a network. I like the term relationships because, again, we can really relate to that concept as a human. We appreciate good relationships that we have in our lives. We get a lot of value out of them. So from the perspective of a business or an organization, the more positive relationships you have, the higher levels of trust you've built with your customers, your employees, whatever other stakeholders, that also tends to lead to better results, better impact, and just a more aligned, harmonious way of doing business.
So without strong relationships, whether you're a new business or a mature business, it's very hard to grow.
Definitely. So to use us as an example, so I'll take my company Flyprint. So we're a marketing agency. We have different partners, we have different suppliers, we have different clients, we have employees. And the willingness to want to work with us is quite often based on relationships that we formed, right? Where we can understand each other, we speak the same language. We've developed a level of trust where if I place an order with a subcontractor that's part of a project we're delivering, having a relationship of knowing what they're going to be able to deliver and then to promise to be able to deliver that to my end client is absolutely critical towards our success.
Yes, and I know in my personal business, it's word of mouth referral. People who worked with me like what I'm doing, they'll tell somebody. So, sometimes you can spend a great deal of money or time through social media trying to build your brand, and sometimes it's just doing the right things at the right time with the right people.
Yeah, that's a great point. So especially with professional service providers like yourselves, or think lawyers or doctors or dentists or real estate agents, I could go online and Google and maybe try and find somebody, but what even in the modern day we're still apt to do is just ask our family and friends who we trust closely who they work with and if they've had a great experience, and we'll put a lot of credibility behind that. So I think even more so when we're making decisions that are very important to us, we'll actually rely on those who we have a close relationship with, and then by extension who they've had a positive relationship with in terms of making our decisions.
So I'm sure you've had experiences where something's happened in an organization and you're called in to try to mitigate the situation, and it's probably a very emotionally challenging time for people. Can you share a situation where something has happened and the reputation has been damaged and you've stepped in and some of the steps you took to repair it?
So, for example, you're in a business and you've made a promise to a client to deliver on something.
Yes.
So you're going to get them a certain product by a certain date. And for some reason there's a delay. And so your client's obviously upset. There could be a lot of different ways that you handle that situation. One of the things you brought up there is that there isn't a kind of an emotional component too. So what we try and do is jump into a situation, try and understand if we're advising a client, what's happening, what possible steps they are to remediate the situation. One of the things that we always advise is make sure that you're giving full and clear communication to whoever you're dealing with. So the person that you made the mistake with, or that you're not delivering the product to, that they're in a position that they fully understand the situation. They can make a decision based on what's happening. So being transparent is a huge factor.
Yes.
And going above and beyond. So when we started our business and we were really busy in the kind of print and production space, things like that would happen sometimes, right? Something would happen in the factory, so we'd end up missing a deadline on delivering things to clients. And those were challenging situations for us to deal with. A business with integrity would constantly work overtime to try and remove as many of those as possible and
Yes.
make sure that we were consistently delivering better outcomes to our clients. But in those acute situations where you've got to deal with it, we've always had a principle since day one that we will go above and beyond to fix the situation.
Yes.
So certainly, I'm the president of my business, but there's been many times when, because of a shipping delay, I'll drive, hours somewhere to pick something up from a factory to make sure that my client gets it on time, even though it was only a $100 order.
Yes.
Because in terms of our reputation, we've been able to build one that we always deliver what we promise to for our clients. So a big one is doing whatever you can and going out of your way to make sure you live up to your promises.
So what I hear you saying is basically your word is your bond.
100%.
And if you don't follow through, you pay later. Pay now or pay later. It's interesting because we're not perfect. Perfection is impossible. I know that. I talk about that all the time. But I think the thing is when we make a mistake, it's how we go about fixing it. And tell me, how do you go about fixing a mistake that perhaps you couldn't meet the deadline? How do you manage that?
And sometimes that'll happen. And so, what we would do in that type of situation is we would jump right in with our client and say, if we were not able to provide this solution for you, we're going to do everything we can to be on your team as you deal with your small crisis that may have come about as a result of us not getting you your product on time. So like I said, transparency is one huge factor, letting them know in an honest way what happened, why it happened, making it clear that you have done everything you can, and sometimes there are circumstances that were outside of your control.
Yes.
And finding a way to remediate the situation in whatever way possible. And the example that I gave you before, there would be many times where that particular order or service that we're delivering, we'd be losing money on it.
Yes.
But in the big picture, it helped us to earn and craft a reputation that we could be relied upon. So a lot of times it's taking the big picture view.
Yes.
And not making short-term decisions.
Yeah, so you do your very best to treat everyone equally.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about the dollar value, just to really make sure that you are who you are with them. And so next time when they need to book again, they'll think they have a plan. They can fix something if it doesn't work.
Yeah, in the modern day, there's not a lot of uncertainty. You can write out a beautiful promise on your website about what you're going to deliver for a customer.
Yes.
And the first thing people are going to do is they're going to go online and look up reviews.
Yes.
So it really doesn't matter what you wrote. When they go look up and read what you actually did, that's what they're going to put a lot more weight in, right? So it's, a big part of building a reputation. And, I run a marketing agency, and we work with clients on building a good reputation. And the first step we tell them of building a good reputation is to actually deliver upon what your promise is, right? Because otherwise you were just kind of putting window dressing on something that's not true.
Absolutely. And I work with some clients who have had some difficult situations where they've had some bad reviews online, and their focus becomes on how to take those reviews off, not on how to fix a problem. And so you sort of talked about that. Let's fix it, make it right, and then we'll have less opportunity of having the bad reviews.
Exactly.
That's great.
So actually, it's a good point you bring up, right? So reviews are so important these days, and what organizations don't always think about is there's a lot of value placed onto how you respond to a review.
Yes.
So if a customer came into your store or your hotel or whatever that is, and they had a bad experience, those things can happen. Yeah. But if people who are looking at those reviews see how management responded, yes. Whether or not it was an exceptional circumstance and one that wouldn't be expected to happen again, and that they've sincerely taken steps to remediate the situation, then I may feel confident that if I go stay at that hotel, that okay, that thing did happen and it was an unfortunate experience, but the management has convinced me that I'm not going to have that same negative experience.
Yes, yes, so that's good. It's how you manage the challenge. Well, I want to talk to you more about social media, but we're going to go to break now, and after break, we'll be back with Mark and talking about some of the challenges of managing social media today and reputation.
Hi, I'm Greg Lenko, host of Hammer Happenings here on Cable 14 in Hamilton. Every Monday, we have a brand new show filled of fun and exciting guests. Watch it weekly or on demand on cable14.com. And if you have an event coming up that you would like televised, let us know. Go to cable14.com/request-access. And remember to join me every week for some exciting events in Hamilton and new songs.
Welcome back. So we're going to talk about how do we manage challenges with social media and reputation. So Mark, can you share a story with us, maybe something that was a real challenging media issue and how you handled it with your client?
Sure. So social media is now ubiquitous. I think in past years of business, we talk about it as something that was there or something that you could do. And now it's just completely woven into the fabric of our society and how we do business, right? And
yes.
It's kind of the new city square for where we engage and talk about things and have conversations. And there's a lot of positives that have come out of social media. It's so much easier to connect to people. It's really democratized the ability for us to go to market and get our message out there, because everybody can just set up an account and get on a platform, and the market, will express whether or not it's interested in the message that we're putting out there. At the same time, and we won't go too much into depth on this, but there's negatives that have come out of social media.
Yes.
And one of them is the fact that because things spread so fast, sometimes incorrect or negative things can spread very quickly. And before an organization has the time to do any type of damage control, it can travel around the world,
yes.
in a matter of a few hours or a few minutes. Yeah. So we've certainly worked with clients in circumstances where there was a news article about them or an accusation that was made that was, at potentially incorrect or contained information that did not give a clear explanation of the situation, and had a lot of challenging statements that would shine a negative light in an organization. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who will jump on a bandwagon, yes. do no research, and kind of pile on, and for some reason love to play off that negativity.
Or share it.
That's right.
Add their comments.
So we could talk about the positives. So in dealing with a situation like that that's very negative, speed is extremely important.
Okay.
So not letting the story or something that negative that is put out there get too far ahead of you.
And when you mean speed,
right.
What are you talking from the time, how long from the time it's actually online till
exactly.
you act? What's that?
Exactly. Oh, so I mean, the shorter the better, right? Because
yes.
something could be going around in a few minutes.
Okay.
And the quicker that you can get out there, literally probably in a few minutes, and be able to put out a statement that helps to clarify a situation,
yes.
or shed some light on a situation, or reach out to whoever put out a message that wasn't quite correct and have an opportunity to have a dialogue with them.
Yes.
We've had this happen a number of times where we've advised clients to reach out to somebody who published a social media post and they had a big following, and just to give them, at least the person who made the post, a clear idea of the situation. We can't control how someone's going to
right.
deal with it from there, but we can appeal to a person's sense of fairness and accuracy, and hope that they might amend their post and say, you know what,
yes.
I had this impression, this was clarified for me, so here's the situation. Even just being there and being responsive allows people to value you for your position, your statement, and your merit, versus a story being spun in a way that someone else is telling your story for you and you've got no input.
You know, I agree. And I think the thing is that emotions guide all we do. So if somebody accused me of doing something that I didn't do, or shared it in a way that it actually didn't happen, probably the first thing I'm going to do is take it personally. I have to be very careful that I don't get my emotions hijacked, because when that happens, when we have an emotional hijack, then you could be 4 hours in dealing with that emotion, and that's 4 hours too late to deal with the situation. And you don't want to deal with it when you're angry. You want to be very clear-headed. So have you been in a situation where people are angry and you have to sort of walk them off the ledge and bring them back to reality? And I'm just curious.
Definitely, because there's an interesting, a little bit of a dehumanizing effect with social media, right? Where people are behind a keyboard and they will act differently than they will act in person.
Yes.
So there's been a few times certainly where we've had to engage with our clients when they were under that stress of seeing something negative that was being put about them, about their organization, and we were able to give a little bit more of an objective viewpoint,
Yes.
you know, kind of as a third party. And so our advice was able to kind of help pull them back a little bit,
Yes.
you know, talk with them rationally about the implications of the situation, and moving quickly though,
Yes.
decide what the best step forward would be. It is unfortunate when these things do happen.
Yes.
And there are also opportunities to go back and question, why did this circumstance come about? You know, we're talking about reputation and relationships, and that one's kind of predicated on reputation.
Yes.
But there's also a relationship factor where if your community, let's say if you're a business that operates in a certain city, if your community stand behind you and they like you, and you've had years of doing great work for that community, then there's a good chance you're going to have a whole bunch of other people posting on that comment or on that article saying, well, this seems incorrect.
Yes.
You know, we don't believe it. This is totally out of line with what we understand this business to be, and cast doubt on something too. So
Yes.
that's where I mentioned before, this is a long game.
Yes.
So you constantly plant those seeds, and you know, there's times when you may need to harvest them in support of what you're doing.
Yeah, so it may take time. It may take time to get to where you want to be, and for some people that's hard, but that's probably the best way to play a situation like that, what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I mean, if you've spent a long time running an organization or building out your practice or whatever it is, doing great work for people honestly and sincerely and clearly, then I would suggest that your odds of those things coming out in a negative way are much lower.
Yes.
And if they do come out, it's very easier for you to put a sincere and transparent response or story on the table that can be validated and makes the situation clear and mitigates any harm that comes out of an unfortunate situation like that.
Yeah, this is a topic I could talk to you for hours, but
Yeah.
I have a few other really good questions I'd like to ask you. And one of them is, as you've been building your businesses and expanding your teams, I'm curious, when you onboard new employees, how do you provide training regarding relationships with your current and future clients?
So I think as working in the small business space and working with small and medium enterprises, relationships are incredibly valuable. And that's kind of a value that we hold dear with our organization. And so when I bring people on, that's something that I look for right up front, is they have that kind of natural aptitude and interest. We're an organization that likes to consider our clients as partners and as friends, and that's the dynamic of our relationship. So we look for people who are going to be able to deliver on that promise, that when they engage with our clients, that they're going to deliver that kind of positive relationship and context. So right off the bat, we're screening for it. When people come on, we make sure that they understand this is something that's part of what we do. I carve out time or leave space within the week or the month for my team to make a point to go out to community events and to go to networking activities and to participate in the Chamber of Commerce, and understanding that that's actually part of their work, because they're actually generating an asset for us of those relationships that they're going to bring back to the business. So one of them is creating the space for your employees to be able to do that. Another one is helping them with all the kind of various tactical elements of being able to communicate who they are and their brand. One interesting thing about building relationships is that it's actually a skill, right? So let's say I've never gone out there and I'm not, gone to a business event and this is my first time. I might be nervous. I'm going to be a little bit uncomfortable. Whereas if I've done it 100 times, I'll kind of be a natural at it.
Yes.
So it's actually got to be something that we get intentional about if we want to be good at it. We got to get used to just talking to people, learning how to ask interesting questions, learning how to listen, learning how to foster a relationship. So it's something that we talk about as a team, and we talk about how we're going to continue to grow in that capacity. And we do that because, funny enough, I run a strategy consultancy, I run a marketing agency, and it's the modern day, but yet we do almost no marketing or advertising for our own businesses. And it's because we built all of our business off of relationships and our reputation and going out there.
Well, that must save you a lot of time.
I mean, it saves us time on the one hand. On the other hand, we spend time
Yes.
doing this relationship
Yeah.
development. But
Yeah.
I think the win-win is that as we're humans, we
Yes.
like forming relationships.
Yes.
We like having positive exchanges with people. And that's why I use that word intentionally.
Yes, I love that word.
Sometimes when you say networking, it's a bit
Yes.
too businessy, or feels a bit mechanical for some people.
Yeah.
And when you break it down to the level of like, no, just other business people, they just want to meet you and relate to you as a human too. They don't want an awkward interaction.
Yes.
yeah.
And sometimes when you network, you're meeting so many people that you're really not building a strong relationship. And one of the things you said earlier is about listening. And I talk a lot about active listening and how, sometimes when we get anxious and we're in a situation, we're not really listening to what that person is saying. We're thinking how we're going to respond. And that's very different when building relationships. Your body language is totally different, and people know when you're listening and when you're not. So
Yeah.
I love that. But I want to switch. We just have a little time left, but I really want to hear about your upcoming trip to Liberia. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation about Empowerment Squared.
Yes.
So we're a great,
Familiar.
high-performing small charity. I think our executive director, Leo Johnson. So Leo and I connected about a decade ago, and he wrote me in to what he was doing. And it's been amazing. We've grown from, 0 staff and just a few people trying to help out kids in the community to now we've helped over 1,500 newcomer youth and families to get settled in Hamilton and begin contributing and giving back to the community. What we're doing overseas, we have a few different countries, South Africa, Ghana, and Liberia, that we do advisory work in.
Right.
But specifically in Liberia, which is a country that was severely impacted by almost 2 decades of civil war, we're building an educational complex in Painesville, which is right near the capital city of Monrovia. So almost kind of like Hamilton to Toronto. So
Right.
we're working in Painesville. We have a close partnership with Rotary International in the city of Painesville.
Yeah.
And we're building this educational complex, which is actually going to house the only purpose-built library in the entire country. So there is no other
Wow.
public purpose-built library in the country. We're building co-working spaces, business incubation spaces. We're working in close partnership with the city and a number of other partners, working on building recreation facilities, which are in very short supply there. There's almost nowhere community can go inside and play sports. So
Wow.
it's really a groundbreaking project and something that we've been working on for years as we've been building our organization to be one that has the capacity to pull off a major international project like this.
Yeah, and to have such a wonderful relationship with Rotary, it says a lot about what you're doing.
It does. I mean, a large, trusted, established organization. And on the topic of today's conversation, like even just having the reputation that we're small, but we're an organization that we can pull off something of this scale.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
attract major partners who will put their weight, their resources, and their time behind us is very heartening for us.
Yes, and it's coming into fruition. You're actually physically going there, and you're going to see things sort of fall into place. That's wonderful.
Exactly, yeah, starting to build, and yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear more about that, and I'm sure you'll share some things on social media.
Definitely.
While you're away. You'll be gone about a month?
Yep, so this trip is about a month. Usually
Yeah.
we spend a little bit of time there each year, but some really exciting things have evolved. So this current trip, we're being joined by Paul Takala, who's the head of the Hamilton Public Library.
Yes.
And there's a relationship being formed there between the great library system that Hamilton has, and literally we're building a library system from scratch in a
Wow.
country, and how do you even conceptualize and do
Yeah.
that? So it's exciting, the incredible partners that are being pulled into this ecosystem.
Yeah, that's great. Another example of your reputation. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us and for sharing. The time just flew by. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, great conversation, and I appreciate the message that Marshall Connects is spreading.
Thank you so much. So that's a wrap, and we look forward to seeing you again on Business Wellness. I'm Linda Marshall. Thank you.